We cannot bring out just one sheet of paper. I mean, we could probably do that, but yeah, it seemed to be a bit.
Is enough for communication with an RSS feed.
But we already bring out, let's say, I think 7, 8 publications every week, shorter commentaries, 2 pages to longer pieces, but depends what you need. But for example, state aid and banking, you cannot explain in 2 pages. It's a very complex thing which has been going on for the last year. I was, by the way, in this room this time last year with Nelly Cruz, debating, let's say, because she was very much challenged in the Dutch context of having responded far too late and not applying the state aid rules to what was going on in banking, which was extremely interesting.
Okay, we've got one last question here, and then we'll have the panel wrap it up.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. We will have a question in just a minute. You're right there, Damien. Okay, well, we'll get it in for the next one. Sorry about that. I'm coming back to all of the panel just to wrap that up. I think we found some very, very interesting and, I mean, quite explosive, maybe issues here that we really need to deal more with and to deal, spend some more time on it. Unfortunately, that's one thing we don't have much time of at the moment. What I would like you to do is just reflect on what we have spoken about and perhaps just think what's the next step? I mean, it's fine. This is the mess we're in. This is what has happened. What can journalists do? What can the regulators do? What can everybody do to maybe move it to the next step? Steve, I'll start with you.
I think 2 things. I think one of the things the crisis shows is the need for training and experience. The financial journalists who had that were the people who were better able to understand that. I think we need to maybe move to a system where people are better trained and able to anticipate things. What we're talking about is explaining unanticipated and unprecedented events, and in a sense, that can only be done for people who have experience of other events and contacts and who are able to give the context. So I think the most important thing in this whole crisis for the ordinary people is really to understand the context of it and how it affects them. And the challenge for a financial journalist is to understand the complexity of it, but to be able to explain it in the terms that are simple enough and clear enough for ordinary people to understand both what's going on and what it's going to mean to them. And that's the real challenge we face, both in this crisis and in any future crisis.
Melisande?
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly point out and go back to what one of our colleagues mentioned very, very pertinently yesterday, is that crises are systemic to the economic system and to business cycles, and it could be that we are also exaggerating as much as I talked about the impact of the media in the financial crisis and how we do that with our organization, it could be also that the media actually can't do so much about it, neither negatively nor positively, that crises are going to happen, and the best the media can do is just sort of report its way through it without creating too much chaos, and that it could be that we're not actually so powerful in determining that. So,
okay, a whole discussion for
no,
a whole nother
I mean, sort of turning around the whole topic of the conference,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it could be that the media actually can't do so much. I mean, no matter what, even with warning signals, the crises happen, and why. So,
Karel?
Yeah, I think you have to not be afraid of, let's say, saying the things the way they are. I mean, if you now see this crisis, which has gone over 2 years, I remember I met Gillian Tett in March 2008. I've met her several times in the meantime, let's say, but she said in March 2008 she was accused by the ECB of overdoing the crisis. This was the first year of the crisis. And if you now look back to this, if policymakers had reacted earlier, and that's where your task is, let's say, if you had, let's say, pushed even harder, look guys, there is something serious happening, you have to act, probably we would have prevented the worst. And that was in March 2008, Lehman Brothers happened in September 2008, at European level, ministers as well at national level, the first year didn't do a damn thing. There was lack of coordination, even when was Steinmeier standing before Wall Street on September 2008, 2 weeks after Lehman, saying, oh, this is the crisis of the motherhood of capitalism, the United States. This will not affect us. How is that possible? So probably the only conclusion you can have from that is that journalists have not sufficiently overdone the crisis. And then, let's say, then I hear that comment from Gillian Tett saying to me, the ECB accused me, let's say, that I was overdoing the crisis in the first 8 months. I think, let's say, the FT's coverage, by the way, let's say, to give them credit, certainly in August 2007, September 2007 was extremely good when it all started.
So there could have been a lot more. Jason?
Yeah, I really
probably first and foremost would echo a lot of the things that Steve had said, with just developing the sources, being prepared to really dig into the data. These things are really important. I think the media, as someone who has written daily reports on foreign exchange and commodity markets, I've seen it so many times. A wire story comes out and the market moves. And so it's not just data, but sometimes a wire story will come out very quickly. So I think sometimes not just the longer pieces, but you can have very small pieces looking at very small pieces of, whatever, say it's weekly oil inventory data. If there's something weird in that report that a reporter who's really good with numbers can sift through and pull it out, that can really impact the market. So I really think the media has a lot of power. And I think, you do have risks of sort of bandwagon effects, where it goes and then it can create a fervor among the populace. And I think, to get to an ethics point, journalists too can get swept up into it because you're embedded and it's your thing. But I think it's the really good reporting, the quality stuff that we've all talked about up here. That can have impact beyond just a transitory move in the market.
Thank you for that, all of you. And I think it's very clear the importance of journalists. And with that power, as you call it, comes a sense of responsibility, a huge sense of transparency, as much as I think journalists can do, but also that responsibility and accountability, which I think is what we need to see.